Hi again, everyone. Gary Digital Williams here on Boxing on the Beltway, our podcast network. And of course, Boxing on the Beltway podcast network can be heard on Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio.com, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, TuneIn, Spotify, and on Google Podcasts. So there's many areas, and we're looking for more to bring you the Boxing on the Beltway podcast network each and every week. And this week, we actually have some boxing news to talk about. We had a boxer competing in a match this past weekend, and we're going to talk about that as well. And also another boxer will be coming up next weekend in a bout in the near future, COVID-19 permitting, of course. But we'll see how it happens there. But we have that to talk about. We also have a passing of a real good man who worked in the Maryland boxing venues all over around the state of Maryland. Really nice man. He passed away this week, and we're going to talk about him. Actually passed away early in June. So we're going to talk about him as well. And then we're going to look back this week, since boxing has returned to ESPN television. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of Beltway Boxing on ESPN, especially the signature program that they had for many years called ESPN Friday Night Fights, which is actually mostly on ESPN2, but still part of the ESPN network. We're going to talk about that as well this week in this podcast. The Boxing on Beltway podcast network is brought to you as always by Real Time Pain Relief. From boxers to ballerinas, the shoulder pain, the muscle strain, everything in between, Boxing on the Beltway recommends Real Time Pain Relief, the natural, plant-based, safe, fast, and effective ointment. You go to freepainoffer.com, buy $10 worth of real-time pain relief. You get a free $10 tube of real-time pain relief, the official pain relief of the 2020 Daytona 500. Rub it on. The pain is gone in real time. And by DeborahSpears.com. She has great weight loss tips, great jewelry, and great training methods. So you go to Deborah, that's Debra Spears.com. Well, this past weekend, is Saturday, June 27th, at the White Sands Treatment Center in Plant City, Florida, which I don't think is an arena, according to what I've read and did a little research on what that place was. I think it's an actual treatment center for those who have some issues. And this is where this card took place, and it's a card where Randallstown, Maryland super welterweight Cecil McCalla scored a first-round TKO over Matias Garcia of Ciudad Sandino, Nicaragua, at the White Sands Treatment Center in Plant City, Florida. Now, according to reports, this was on Saturday, June 27th. Now, according to reports, McCall did an outstanding job countering Garcia's attack. He knocked Garcia down twice before referee Andrew Glenn waved the bout off at 1:57 of the opening round. So this is the first bout for McCall since he lost a 10-round unanimous decision to Madiar Iskayev in Tucson, Arizona. That was back in May of 2019. That bout was for the NABF Junior Super Welterweight title. Okay, so McCall is now 22-4, 9 KOs, while Garcia, he's lost 3 straight contests, all by knockout. His record now falls under 500 at 17, 18-1, 14 KOs. So congratulations to Cecil McCall, the first Beltway boxer to compete in, I guess we can say, the post-COVID-19 era. I don't know. Now, the second one is scheduled to come up on Saturday, July 11th. And that'll be Baltimore super welterweight undefeated Lorenzo Simpson, 7-0, 4 KOs out of Baltimore, Maryland. He'll be fighting in a 6-round bout at the Mississippi Coast Convention Center in Biloxi, Mississippi. He'll take on Alexandro Duarte, who's originally from Brazil, now fighting out of New York City. He's 16, 9-1, 13 KOs. Now, this card is scheduled to be telecast on the CBS Sports Network, so should be coming to fruition, so we'll see. But Lorenzo Simpson now 7-0, 4 KOs. We'll talk more about this card next week in the next podcast when we will do a full preview of this card. But Lorenzo Simpson is scheduled to be back in action on Saturday, July 11th at the Mississippi Coast Convention Center, Biloxi, Mississippi, taking on Alexandro Duarte in a 6-round bout. And I believe Duarte may be the most experienced foe that Simpson has had to date. I have to double check that. All right, so that's coming up, and that's all we have. That's more than we've had since March. So it's really actually nice to actually talk about some actual pro boxing, or any pro or amateur boxing would be nice at this point. Now, we have to note the passing of really a nice guy, no nonsense. When I think about this man, I think about he was just no nonsense behind the scenes. His name was Earl Savage, and Earl Savage was a Maryland Boxing Hall of Famer, very involved in the boxing scene. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But he served as a noted Maryland inspector. He passed away back on June 6th, actually, at the age of 98 years old. And he had a long and very, very fruitful life. Born on December 26, 1921, he was born in Washington, D.C., but he moved to Baltimore, educated in the city public school system. He attended Carver Vocational High School. He pursued a course in tailoring, and that would help him in the future. He did box for a short time as an amateur. He used his first and middle names of Earl Washington, so his full name was Earl Washington Savage. From 1942 to 1945, Mr. Savage served in the United States Navy. He eventually was sent to Pearl Harbor after, of course, December 7th, and 1941. And he received an honorable discharge, returned to Carver High School, finished his education under the GI Bill, and he completed his course in tailoring. And Mr. Savage would teach tailoring in New York and Philadelphia before he returned to Baltimore, and he'd open up his own tailoring cleaning business called East Landville Tailors. That was on East Landville Street in Baltimore. And he also worked at Charles Cleaners until his retirement in 1986. He had his own tailor shop in 1954. But Mr. Savage had his own long career with Maryland boxing. He was the goodwill ambassador for Ring 101, the boxing club in Baltimore, because of his outstanding service, and he was indeed a no-nonsense, recognized, accomplished inspector with the Maryland State Athletic Commission from 1994 to 2011. That's, of course, where I got a chance to know him and just see him take control back then. For those who don't know what the inspectors do, some of the things they do, they oversee everything that goes on in the back prior to, about, and after about as well. And they also escort the boxers to the ring. They make sure everything's going on in the corners that's supposed to be going on. That's supposed to be above board. Everything is going on there. But I would see Earl Savage before bouts and for cards, I should say, and he would just be taking care of business, making sure everything was on the up and up. He wasn't angry, just very fiery at times, and he was just a very, very fun guy to look around. And he looked at guys like him and another one of my friends, the late Ralph Pridgeon, who was an inspector as well. These people took care of business back then. These are the people that really helped make Maryland the quality commission that I think it is. I mean, a lot of people may have some differences with some of the things that Maryland does, but a lot of people that are there behind the scenes, there's Stan Chung and so many other people who are there. I shouldn't name names, but there's so many people who work behind the scenes in the Maryland State Athletic Commission and all the commissions here in the Beltway that really do outstanding work, and Earl Savage was definitely one of those. In 2006, Earl Savage was inducted into the Maryland Boxing Hall of Fame. He was preceded in death by his wife Blanche, as well as his brother Jesse, and two of his children, Andrea and Philip, and also a granddaughter, an 8-year-old granddaughter named Renee. Survivors include Diane, as well as numerous grandchildren, great-grandchildren. His viewing was actually this past week. He had a viewing this past weekend in Randallstown, Maryland, and the service was this past weekend as well. We send our deepest condolences. He was a very nice man. I used to love working with him and being around him. Another great person that I've met along my journey here in the Beltway. And so my condolences to the family of Earl Savage. He was a very, very good man. No question about that. Going to miss him. No question. And now we're going to go to our historical spot for this week. And it's going to be interesting this week because we're going to talk about, because as you see, boxing has returned to TV. And it's been on the ESPN. In fact, there's been a lot of boxing on ESPN over the last couple of weeks. And just made me think back to a time where, and really Beltway boxers are still prominent, have been still prominent on ESPN past the ending of this series. But during the time of Friday Night Fights on ESPN2, Beltway boxers made a very good appearance, made a very good run on that show. And some of the some of the appearances that Beltway boxers made were truly some of the most epic appearances. They will live on forever in Beltway boxing lore, and some have lived on forever in ESPN2 history. So it was a great time. And ESPN Friday Night Fights was on for 17 years, and it ended on Friday, May 22nd of 2015. And it was ESPN2 was very kind to the Beltway during that 17-year period. Beltway boxers were on the show 64 times since Boxing on the Beltway began on July 30th, 2005. That was just in 10 years, really. From 2005 to 2015, Beltway boxers were on the show for 64 times during that 10-year period. I don't know how many they were on throughout the history of ESPN Friday Night Fights, but during the time of Boxing on the Beltway boxers were on 64 times in just 10 years. Now, we talked about one of the episodes of Friday Night Fights. We talked about that when we did our tribute to Darnell Wilson. And that was, of course, when he knocked out Emmanuel Nwodo in the 11th round. Again, one of the most powerful left hands you ever wanted to see. And lead announcer Joe Tessitore called it the most powerful punch he'd ever seen and had a tremendous call of the knockout. If you go on YouTube and watch that last round, 11th round, Joe Tessitore was he was sounding like he was just out of his mind with that situation. Joe Tessitore and Teddy Atlas called that bout. It was tremendous, no question about that. And that was one of the reasons Wilson was one of 3 Beltway boxers who had the most appearances on Friday Night Fights during the Boxing on Beltway era. Along with Fernando Guerrero and Anthony Peterson, Wilson was on the program 4 times. 2 of Guerrero's appearances, Fernando Guerrero's, were in his hometown of Salisbury, Maryland, where he was the drawing card and performed in front of the packed houses at the Wycomico Civic Center in Salisbury, Maryland. Guerrero won an 8-round unanimous decision over the always tough Gabriel Rosado on February 6, 2009. And then he won the NABF middleweight title with a 10-round unanimous decision over Derek Finley on February 18, 2011. I saw the Rosado fight. I actually went down to Salisbury to see that fight. It was really nice. Great fight. And Guerrero used to pack him in down in Salisbury, Maryland. No question about that. He now lives in California, but he was doing well. Now, it may come as a surprise that Anthony Peterson made more appearances on Friday Night Fights than his older brother, the former world champion, Lamont Peterson. Lamont was on the show 3 times. Now, Lamont Peterson was the only Beltway boxer to defend the world title on Friday Night Fights. He defended the IBF Super Lightweight Championship during the Boxing on Beltway era. That was against Kendall Holt on February 22nd, 2013 at the DC Armory. Great bout there. Now, the Peterson brothers together headlined an ESPN2 card on May 25th, 2007 at the DC Armory. Anthony Peterson scored a 9th round TKO over Luis Ernesto Jose. Lamont Peterson stopped John Brown in 8 rounds. Now, during the during that 10-year period between 2005 and 2015, there were a total of 5 Friday Night Fights telecasts that originated from the Beltway region during the 10-year period of that blog, that between 2005 and 2015. However, there was none more controversial. One day I'm going to have to really talk about this in detail, this whole card in detail. There was none more controversial than the one that took place on August 15th, 2008. It was at a club that's now closed here in the area called the Ibiza Nightclub. That was in D.C. And that was the time ESPN2 tried to nudge instant replay into boxing. I'm going to give you a little overview of this, and then maybe somewhere down the road I may do this card in general. It was definitely one of the more controversial cards in boxing. Now, the main event on the card was a matchup for a minor regional title, junior middleweight title between Baltimore's Ishmael the Arsenal Arvin and Anthony Thompson of Philadelphia. Not to be confused with our Tony Thompson here in D.C. Anthony Thompson was a junior middleweight out of Philadelphia. Now, Arvin won the bout by TKO in the 6th round because of what we saw as a clash of heads that caused a gash over Thompson's left eye. Despite the gash, Thompson was able to knock Arvin down twice during the bout. Excuse me. However, Thompson's eye got progressively worse and the fight was stopped. Arvin got the TKO win because Malik Waleed, the referee, ruled the cut as a result of a punch, not a headbutt. Now, we all saw a clash of heads, but Waleed called it a headbutt. ESPN2 announcer Joe Tessitore put a monitor on the ring apron and got Waleed and other DC commissioners to watch the replay, and Waleed admitted he made a mistake, but the decision stood. And this controversy lasted for many days, many folks around the boxing world giving their opinions. It was, like I said, I'm going to have to go into more detail on this card here. But the governing body for the title for that was competed for, that was the International Boxing Organization's USBO super middleweight title, ended up stripping Arvin of the title. And yours truly was dragged into the controversy because Thompson's camp made a false claim that I helped influence the decision because I had a financial stake in Arvin's career, which was totally bogus. As a matter of fact, I remember where I was when I saw it. Fight Dr. Jerome Spears and I were up in the rafters watching the bout. We were nowhere near the ring that night, that particular card. Nowhere near the ring. And that's why I had no financial stake whatsoever in Ishmael Arvin. I've never had any financial stake in any boxer here in the Beltway. Never have. So we're going to talk more about that card because that was a strange night all the way around. It really was. We'll talk more about that. That was back on August 15, 2008. Now, also on that card, by the way, were Alexander Johnson and Seth Mitchell. And they both made appearances on that card. Now, we broke down the number of ESPN boxers, Beltway boxers, who appeared on that card, on that ESPN Friday Night Fights TV show from 2005 to 2015. Once again, Anthony Peterson, Fernando Guerrero, and Darnell Wilson all made the most appearances on the card, 4 appearances on ESPN Friday Night Fights, 3 appearances were made by the following boxers: Brian Jargo, Thomas Top Dog Williams Jr., Lamont Peterson, Tony Thompson, Seth Mitchell, and Emmanuel Transformer Taylor. The following boxers made 2 appearances: Dusty Hernandez Harrison, Antoine Douglas, Tim Coleman out of Baltimore, Dominic Wade, former world champion DeMarcus Chop Corley, another former world champion Eric Mighty Mouse Aiken, Emmanuel Nwodo, and Teddy Reed. And then one appearance was made by the following boxers: Ishmael Arvin, Jesse Niccolo, Cecil McCalla, Samuel Nikwe, a boxer that came from Nigeria and moved in. Cornelius Whitlock had a very short career, but made that list. Ty Barnett, Maurice the Freight Train Barham, Scott Cujo Sigmund, Emmanuel Aline, George Armenta, Horace the Reason Grant, Henry Sugarpoo Buchanan, Alexander the Great Johnson, Sean Mitchell, another former world champion, Sean Mitchell. We talked about him last week. Michael Warwick, Lamont Pearson, that was the punching postman out of Maryland, Dean Pitbull White, and the first boxer to appear on Friday Night Fights in the Box on Beltway era was Luther Sugarman Smith, not the cruiserweight that's been recently. This was the original welterweight, Luther Sugarman Smith, who appeared on August 5th, 2005 in Mashantucket, Connecticut. Jesse Niccolo was the last Beltway boxer to appear on Friday Night Fights. On May 8th, 2015, he fought in the card in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He lost that bout. So once again, this was a true, wonderful series for boxing in the Beltway. And again, it was a very, very big reason why Beltway boxers were so well known around the country and around the world, because many of them would appear on Friday Night Fights. So a short podcast this week, and so we're going to do some more history and also hopefully get some more events coming in the next few weeks, and just continue on and hope everybody's staying safe, washing their hands, and doing the thing they need to do, wearing a mask, and doing the thing they need to do to stay safe in this rapidly changing world we live in today. But that'll do it for another edition of Beltway Boxing Podcast Network. Once again, the Beltway Boxing Podcast Network brought to you by Real Time Pain Relief. You go to freepainoffer.com, buy $10 worth of Real Time Pain Relief. You get a free $10 tube of Real Time Pain Relief, the official pain relief of the 2020 Daytona 500. Rub it on, the pain is gone in real time. And by DeborahSpears.com. Great weight loss tips, great jewelry, great training methods at Deborah, Debra Spears.com. Thanks for joining us. My name is Gary Digital Williams. Thank you as always for listening in and joining us each and every week. And hope to see you again next week with another podcast. Until then, thanks for joining us. Always remember to keep supporting the best boxing in the world, the boxing along the Beltway. Thanks for listening. Take care.